All Age Media is proud to present The Week Before, a show that encourages discussion, knowledge, and a bit of banter in between. Now presenting Jamie Dyer with this week's special guest.
My guest today is Pilar. Hello, how are you?
I am okay, a bit cold, but well. Thank you, Jamie.
Yes, it's a bit cold out there, isn't it?
Yes, December.
Yes, indeed. And according to my records here, it says that you're a voiceover and you're also a coach / consultant for virtual teams. What does that mean?
That means that I help people who are working together but are not working in the same location. I help them to figure out the best ways of working together.
So kind of like motivational.
More than motivational, I do provide a bit of motivation if they need it, but more than that, maybe I'll help them to find why there is a lack of motivation, or help them to find what the motivation is for working together, or what can help them to be motivated to go the extra mile.
Oh, well, that's interesting, actually. So there's lots of communication, lots of team building involved as well, I would imagine.
Yes, that's it. So it's mainly about finding out what makes us tick and what makes us want to work better with each other, what we need to know about each other, or what do we need to know about the process, whether we're lacking information. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah, it's a huge scope. Let's see now. As you've listened to this show before, you know what it's about. But for any listeners who don't, well, the first round is the discussion round, because we're split into 3 rounds. I'll explain those a little bit later on. The first round is the discussion round, and the question today is the art of real conversation dying? That's right. So it leads right into your alleyway as well. So have you got any thoughts on that, Pilar?
I don't think it's dying. So that would be my straight answer. I think that it's changing. I think it's changing a lot. I think that maybe the art of real-time, face-to-face communication, maybe that is dying a little bit. But I think that it's being replaced by asynchronous communication, so non-real time. So whereas before I would speak to you like we're doing now, the equivalent of what I think is growing would be that I would post something like we've done on Facebook. Then at some point you decide you want to talk to me and you post something back. So we continue to have a conversation, but it's very different to what we have been used to before.
But in a way, that form of conversation's always been there because, of course, for as long as man's been around, the letter has existed, and that's that's the same idea, I would imagine.
It's exactly the same idea. I think now I think of some people as pen pals. So people that, for example, I have never met, like you. I've never met you in person, but we met in through Facebook, and we've exchanged some comments, or other people I've met in groups. So I only communicate with them via writing. So yes, I completely agree that we have replaced the letter with other things.
Yeah, and obviously, do you think there is a negative side to the whole, Twitter, Facebook, social media thing?
I think the negative side is that there seems to be, let's see how I put this. I see a lot of people, and I don't have a smartphone, so I don't class myself in the group, but I do see a lot of people who are using their smartphones more than the people that are across the table from them. So I don't think that Twitter and Facebook are necessarily, they're not the root of this negativity, but I do think that in wanting to communicate through Twitter a lot, through Facebook, through all these instant updates of what our friends are doing or telling them what we're doing, then we're missing out on really connecting with the person that is there with us. So paying attention to what we're doing now, to what's going on around us, to, I don't know, the blue sky, these wonderful things that are happening around us. So in a way, I almost think we're going the other extreme. We're hyper communicating. We are hyper connecting to people through our electronic devices, and we're missing out on being present or being here with you, talking to you, listening, or even just in our surroundings. So I think that's, for me, the negative. Actually, there might be too much communication and not enough communication with the person there with you.
Well, of course, and I mean, obviously, people who probably spend a lot more time communicating in that fashion, perhaps other that this doesn't really count for people with autism and such, because I know they can't help it, but obviously some people with eye contact and other parts, because obviously communication is more than just speaking to a person. It's about the body language as well.
Yes, there is a lot of body language and even tone of voice. If we're talking about speaking with the voice, there's about, communication. It's not speaking, it's speaking and listening and reading and being interested in something and questioning and continuing the conversation so that we get to know the person better, or so that we get more information. So yes, it's very broad, and I think it's very interesting what you're saying though also, because actually for some people maybe technology has opened up conversation, has opened up communication. So for example, I find it quite difficult to talk to strangers when I meet them for the first time, but I have no trouble in posting in a new group and introducing myself or asking a question or engaging with someone that I've never met before. So I think, again, it can have a lot of negative connotations, but it's also opened up maybe some avenues for people to communicate and to discover new things.
Definitely. I mean, I'm one of those people that has trouble. I'm very sort of quiet if I don't know a person, but if I see them on Facebook and say they're saying something I agree with, I will automatically post without even thinking, because it's much easier to communicate in that fashion. And I've met loads of friends over the internet, and I think over time, obviously, we've become more I don't know, accepting of it. I suppose about 10, 15 years ago, there was kind of that skepticism about people you meet on the internet. Now it's a bit more open, because obviously people like Facebook have now said use your own name rather than nicknames, and it makes it a lot more safer in that respect.
Yes, I completely agree. It's more acceptable. It's more acceptable to meet someone, and now that it's every ordinary people are on Facebook, so you can meet them and connect, and it's acceptable. I think that's very interesting what you said, that it's now become acceptable to do that.
Yeah, and I think as well, I mean, I think the term friend has actually changed since the invention of Facebook personally, because sometimes I will go out and I will meet somebody, and literally I'll go home and they'll be there, on my Facebook, and I've only ever seen them once, and and I think that's kind of changed the meaning, hasn't it, of the word friend.
Oh, completely, and it drives me up the wall, because I'm someone that, in order for me to call someone a friend, I have to really trust them. So if not, they're an acquaintance. So now, well, I definitely use the term Facebook friend. So my real friends are my Facebook friends. But I have to say that some of my Facebook friends are wonderful people. So maybe I'll drop the term at some point.
Yeah, maybe mould them all together. But then once we start doing that, that kind of blurs the line between reality and kind of cyber, doesn't it?
Yes, but I think you can have, I mean, can you have a friend that you've never met? Well, I think you can. I think but you have to work very hard at the relationship, because in order to know that they're going to be there for you, which is what a friend is, in order to know that they're never going to stab you in the back, which is what good friends are, we need to get to know someone quite well. And in order to do that, if we only have contact with them on the internet, then we have to work extra hard, I think. And extra hard at being ourselves someone that someone can count on. So I do think it's possible. I have to say I've met quite a few people who, you're right. Maybe friends would be a strong word, but definitely the definitely closer acquaintances that some people that I have met face to face.
No, definitely. I agree with you there, and obviously there requires an extra amount of trust as well if you go sort of the extra mile with that, as you call it, Facebook friend.
Yes.
Right, so that's the end of the first round there. I believe we've discussed that to a length. Let's move on to the second round. It's called the You Tell Me round. And I'll give you 15 seconds to talk about a specific subject. If once these 15 seconds have ended, then if I think you can talk about it more, I'll give you another 15 seconds. Is that clear?
Yes, it's clear, yes.
Okay, well, I will give you the first 15-second subject, of course, which is methods of communicating. That's methods of communicating. I will give you 15 seconds starting from now.
Well, my head spins when you say methods of communicating because, as we've been discussing, there are so many ways of being in touch with people, of people getting in touch with us, of us connecting with people. And there are, I think for me, the main difference between most of them is whether they're synchronous or asynchronous, so whether it's in real time or not. And also the ones like you were mentioning before, the letter, the ones that we are losing, that we're not using anymore, like the letter. When was the last time you wrote a really long email, for example? Like I used to write really long letters, like 1 or 2 A4 sides. And now my emails, even to someone I haven't seen for a while, will be 4 lines long. Basically, type them as fast as I can and get them out as fast as I can. So the methods of communicating, they're changing, and the fact that some of them are more available than others and that we use some of them more than others means that our own methods are changing of communicating. So now it's very sound, fast, shareable tweets, for example, or now we're using images a lot. So now we're trying to communicate how we feel, what we're sensing, how we want to portray ourselves through an image, whether it's our profile photo or an image we share on Twitter or Facebook. So again, who would have thought some time ago that one of the main methods that people will be talking to each other and responding to each other would be via images? So I think that's quite interesting.
Oh, it is, yeah. And you spoke for over a minute there, which is
Did I?
Which is impressive. Yeah. I could talk about this all day.
I know.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Usually I have a stopwatch here, but I'm just using the clock today, so I'm literally just counting from the clock. Yeah, so I think I'm going to give you 30 seconds for the next one, because that was I can tell that you're a tutor of some kind, definitely, because you say the message so clearly. That was so clearly defined.
Oh, good, because in my mind it was all over the place.
No, that was so clearly defined. Right, let's move on to the second subject here. I'm going to give you 30 seconds this time, or more if you require it. Let's see, it's the art of tutoring. That's the art of tutoring, starting from now.
Tutoring involves as much listening as telling, I think. And it goes back again to what you were saying, that in the art of tutoring is not just about how much information we pass on, how much advice we pass on, but also how much we're taking in from the person we're tutoring. So if we're completely focused on telling them or making sure they understand us or making sure they absorb the information, then we're missing out on a big opportunity to read whether they're taking it in, whether they're following us sometimes or others, whether they're coming up with any conclusions for themselves that are probably going to be more valuable than anything we have to say. So the art of tutoring involves listening, it involves pausing, it involves silence, it involves providing a space for the person being tutored to reflect, to ask questions. And the art of tutoring also involves asking questions, because in asking questions, we get the other person to think for themselves, to know that learning is not just about absorbing information, but also about realizations, about coming to conclusions, about making sense of what's happening to them, of making sense of what they're learning so that they can use it. So, so the art of tutoring involves a lot of listening.
Oh, definitely, yes. Yes, and getting the message across, as you said, and understanding the needs of the person whom you are tutoring there. That's very well done. Usually we'd have 3 subjects, but you talked about those so elegantly and so just brilliantly that I think we'll move on to the third round there.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're nearly at the end of our time here. Let's see. So we're going to move on to the third round, which is the What's on Your Mind round, where I hand it over to you simply to maybe ask a question. Maybe there's something that you've been thinking about, maybe a certain topic. It could be absolutely anything. And I will say, Pilar, what's on your mind?
Now, as always, my mind goes blank when I'm asked what's on my mind. The same as when someone says, "What do you think?" and blank, or talking about, because we've been talking about tutoring and teaching and all this stuff. If I'm maybe in a talk or a seminar and someone says, "Oh, and what do you think?" and mind goes blank.
Oh, I agree.
So
Yeah, that's happened so many times. I I always say, don't ask me what's happening in the lecture. Ask me afterwards what happened in the lecture,
Yes, exactly.
so that I've had
So
time.
there was nothing on my mind at the moment. Just looking forward to speaking to you. So that was my main thing, and actually wondering, okay, how am I gonna talk about these things that he throws at me for 15 seconds?
I know, and then you talk for over a minute on it. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I should point out actually that we've not spoken before, and this
No.
is completely the first conversation. And actually, it's been back and forth, which is a good thing, which is, as we said earlier, the beauty of online communication.
Yes, we did talk a little bit through messaging on Facebook, and now we just talked just a bit before we came on the line. But yeah, this is something else, Jamie, that's new, and it's people getting to know each other with an audience. Because if you think about this podcasting business, where I do some podcasting also, where I'll talk to someone who I've never met before, who I've exchanged a couple of messages or emails. Of course, I've seen their online presence, but I've never talked to them before. And the first chat we have is to be broadcasted.
Yeah, I know, it's incredible. I should ask you actually. I believe you have one or two podcasts. What are they?
Yes, one of them is called 21st Century Work Life, and that's about how the world of work and our attitudes to work are changing. And I also have one which is my hobby podcast called Spain Uncovered, where I talk to people who are in Spain doing different things, and they come on the show and they talk, and it's more of an interview style. So they're fun. And what I'm enjoying most is what I was saying before, is just talking to people I've never met. It's a great excuse.
Yeah, well, you're very good at it. You seem to come up with different subjects. I can tell that you podcast yourself. Yeah,
Well, I'm quite new at podcasting. I started in August, but I do like I'm quite curious. I love knowing what people are thinking and why they say certain things, and getting them to be specific is yeah, it's an interest of mine. Getting people to be specific.
well, no, it's fascinating. Are your podcasts on iTunes at all, or are they for another provider?
They are on iTunes. They're also on Stitcher. I hope on the main podcast platforms. They're also on a couple of on their own websites, SpainUncoveredPodcast.net and virtualnotdistant.com is for the other one. But they're mainly on iTunes also, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, podcasting is a fabulous thing. I mean, I've been on the radio for years, and I'd never tried podcasting properly before. And obviously, this is one of my first attempts. So, it's different, isn't it, to normal radio?
Well, I've never done radio, but is it different because it's always on demand, because it's always recorded? Is that the main thing, or what's the difference, do you think, Jamie?
I think it's because it's always on demand, because it's just on demand audio.
I think that's the main difference. So I think maybe is it easier than live radio?
Well, it is from my point of view, because I tend to stutter, and obviously, as I told you, before this, I'm not feeling particularly well today. So if anything went wrong on that part, obviously I can stop it and start again. Whereas in live radio, you're just there.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think I'm very tempted. I have to say, I have been thinking about starting to do some live broadcasting with the podcasts, because I think I've become too cozy also with the whole recording thing. And sometimes the guests become really cozy. They start going off on one and go, oh, well, maybe you can cut that bit afterwards. And like, no, not more post-production.
Well, I know I asked you beforehand. I said, if there is anything that you say and you want it cut out, you said, oh no, I'll leave it up to you.
Yes. Because also what I found, I don't know if you've found this, or if you will find this, but especially with some of my earlier guests, I remember one of them, he was a friend of mine, and we were talking about some stuff in Spain and the situation, how the economic situation was affecting the arts and the music scene. And he started saying, yeah, but I'm not sure I should be saying that. It's like, no, what do you need to say? What do you need to say? And it's actually when people start to censor themselves that you think, okay, now they're really coming up with something meaty, and pull it out.
I know, and then they just retreat.
Yes.
they just retreat. And I know sometimes when you have a guest, you sometimes just completely, I don't know, they just don't seem like they want to be there.
Oh, I think it's difficult sometimes if you're not used to speaking onto a mic. I think you were saying I'm a voiceover, so I have no difficulty in having a microphone in front of me, or in thinking that my voice is going to be broadcast. But I think sometimes it's a bit intimidating. So maybe that sometimes comes across as, well, I'm not sure I want to be saying this now. And, am I going to say it well? Am I going to sound eloquent?
Yeah, I know what you mean there. Right, so we're going to wrap that up. I would like to say thank you very much for appearing on the program here. It's been wonderful to have you, and I wish you luck with the voiceovers, obviously, and the coaching and the podcasts as well. Go and check those out if you're listening to this. Thank you all for listening, and this has been Jamie Dyer, and we'll see you next week for another Week Before.
You've been listening to The Week Before, a weekly recorded show presented by Jamie Dyer, with this week's special guest. The announcer was Katie Harvey, and this has been an all-age media production. Thank you for listening.